And we are live. What's up, everyone? This is your host, Camden McInnis, and we are back with another new and exciting episode. Tonight, I will be interviewing dating professional Linda Gross. She's the author of the smash hit book titled Mastering Women, The Definitive Guide to Understanding and Being Effective with Women, as well as another book called Hitched in 90 Days or Less, which is a book that she wrote for women who are having a tough time finding men who are willing to not only date them but also become their husband. But tonight we will be discussing everything we can about why men today are failing with women, Mgtow, why unattractive women just can't stop hitting on you, and what you can do to stop it and get better quality women. Linda, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. Thanks for the opportunity. I really appreciate it.
So this is the second time that you've been on the show. The first time we kind of had a bit of a few. Actually, this is the third time actually, but the very first time we first came on the show and we covered this topic, we had a slight technical difficulties. And so for people who are listening, this is kind of a not only a do-over, but I've actually come a long way as far as my own interviewing skills. So this is going to be an excellent interview. If you like the first one, you're really going to love this one. And Linda, can you just kind of give a little bit more of a detailed background about exactly who you are and kind of how you got into the whole dating tips thing?
Absolutely. Yeah, back in my college days, I do have a degree in psychology from UCLA, and who knew that decades later I'd be delving back into my academic files and knowledge to jump into this information. Well, how I got started into it, I was in a long-term marriage. I got out of the marriage and I thought, oh, brother, where have all the good guys gone? And I just, just kind of in a therapeutic way, I started writing a blog. I wrote a daily column, and it was called Dating Tips for Men. And I just started writing away. And after a couple of months, my readers would, it grew and grew. And my readers would say, oh my gosh, the information that you're giving is golden. You have got to package this up and put it in some kind of book format or audio format or something. You've got to put it in a format where people can access it again and again and again. So I said, okay. So I started writing. I started my journey writing the book, and it took me about 18 months or so to write the book. And I combined both areas of knowledge. So the one area was I took my academic research and I scaled it all the way back down to caveman days, 10,000 years ago. And I wanted to find out how has dating differed between caveman days and what we're doing now. And what I found out was not much has changed at all. I know people don't want to hear that, but the age-old question, is it nature or nurture? Most people think it's nurture, meaning your environment and how you're raised. But I tend to believe, after all my research, that it's mainly nature, meaning that we act the way we act because of biology, because of DNA, because we are pre-programmed to act and react in a certain way for the continuance of the species. So not all that much has changed in 10,000 years. So we can listen to the media, we can listen to the news, we can listen to what our schools are telling us or whatever, and it's just a bunch of hooey. DNA is DNA, and we're programmed with certain features, and that's it. Now, unlike animals, we do have a higher sense. We do have human capabilities, which is our cognitive ability. So we can take our animal instincts, if we want to, and override them and cancel them out. But guess what? Most people are lazy. 95% of the time, we're not doing that. We're just going off of our animal instincts, because why mess with a good thing, right? So,
Very
but
true.
if you want to override that natural DNA, you can, but you'd have to think about it and put some thought to it and proactively go down that path. Otherwise, it's not going to happen.
And
So
that's sorry.
yeah. So anyway, part of the book is based on my academic research, and then I started writing the book. I got to about 6 or 7 chapters, and I said, you know what? No one's going to want to have me stand on the soapbox talking about DNA and all this kind of stuff. Let me take it to the average guy on the street. And so I married the academic part with, I interviewed over 20,000 men while I was writing my column, while I was writing the book, and I wanted to know, what was important to the average guy on the street. And by guy on the street, I did this through the internet, through the advent of internet. Sometimes it was a phone call, sometimes it was an email, sometimes it was an instant message, sometimes it was chatting, sometimes it was texting. I used any and all of those features to interview these guys. And I got to, on the same question, I got 500 responses that were exactly the same way. And I'm like, okay, that's cool. Let me keep going. And then I got 1,000 answers answered exactly the same way. And I thought, wow, this is like, it's too much of a coincidence just to be random, just for it to be environment and nurture. And so I kept going and kept going, not because I had to, because it was just so fascinating to me. Back in my college days, most college studies are usually, the sample size is usually around 1,500 to 2,000. So anyway, I kept going because it was fascinating, and I kept going until I got to 20,000. And what I found out over and over again was we act and react in a certain way, and it's all based on biology. So there is no deviation from it. There's no coincidence to it. It just is what it is. It's not that one sex is better than the other. That actually one of my main premises in my book, in fact, I take the full first chapter to explain just how different the sexes are. They're different for a reason. Mother Nature is not stupid. If Mother Nature wanted the sexes to be the same, we would have only had one sex. We would all be amoebas, but we're not amoebas. So we're here to complement each other. We're here to bring forward our strengths. And, the opposite sex helps us with our weaknesses, and we make each other better. And that's the way it was designed. And by making each other better, you unite, you have offspring. And guess what? That leads to what Mother Nature wants, is the continuance of the species.
And that's actually very important, which you had mentioned earlier, and I completely forgot to mention in the introduction how you interviewed over 20,000 men, and that is very important because by doing that, you're able to remove as much of the bias as you as a woman may hold when it comes to, and what a lot of women hold when it comes to the nature of men. When I try to speak with a lot of women about the actual true nature of men, it's always like this, oh bullshit, not all men are like that, and maybe there are some exceptions to the rule, but overall, we aren't, human beings aren't as special and unique from one another as we would all like to think. And so and you dove into biology, but when it comes to biology, men and women want different things, and they're kind of looking for certain characteristics. Now, what do you think is most important? The most important trait that women are looking for when they're trying to find the perfect man to pair with and instinctually mate with?
For a woman needs confidence like she needs air. And the reason why that is because in general, men are built bigger, badder, stronger, faster than we are. And the reason why is to help protect us from a threat. Now, the threat could be maybe danger from another animal. Maybe, the lion has entered the village or something like that, or a bear or something that's going to cause a threat. Or it might be a weather threat. Maybe it's an avalanche or a hurricane or a drought or, who knows what. But anyway, there is a threat there. So she wants to have somebody that will have her back, that will protect the women and children because, quote unquote, we are the weaker sex. In general terms. I mean, I'm not talking about Layla Ali, but in general terms, for the most part, women, men are sturdier than we are. So, they can lift big objects. If there's a flood, maybe they can lift the trees and lift the branches and, rescue the women and children and, get them to the shoreline, get them out of danger. So that's the main reason why. Threats aren't as prevalent, or we have, governmental agencies that help us with these types of threats. But so what? That gene is still there.
Mm-hmm.
So despite what the woman is saying, that she wants a sensitive guy and she wants a guy that cries at the movies and all this kind of stuff, it's all horse pucky, because at the end of the day she's still looking for that quality. Maybe you don't have to remove the tree from the stream, but in everyday practical life, she wants somebody who has her back. She wants somebody that if there is a threat, maybe there's a random guy that's harassing her, and she wants her man to stand up and address the guy and say, look, dude, back off, this is my woman. Or some, not to that those words exactly, but the demeanor of dealing with the other guy with the possible threat. That's what she wants.
Why do women seem to lie to themselves and to other men about that? Like you said, they like to tell guys that they want the sensitive dude that's going to bring them flowers every day and cry at the movies. And this is why I'm very happy to have you on the show, compared to a lot of female dating coaches, because I feel like a lot of female dating coaches would rather say what sounds nice instead of the actual truth. So why is it that women seem to kind of not be honest about their true nature?
I think they have been brainwashed, and I think a lot of children today are raised by single mothers. And the single mothers, although they might have good intentions, they really don't know. So they're raising both of their children to be female like, because they don't have enough of a male influence to impart with their children, especially their male children. So I think it's just female rhetoric. Like, if, for example, if the mother likes to cry and be sensitive, she automatically assumes that both sex children will also, do well by crying and being sensitive at the movies or what have you. So it's just a lack of reference. It's a lack of having a strong father figure in the home to say, no, it's not like that. Figure has other attributes other than crying that he brings to the table. Maybe he's bringing his daughters, like how to do math and science, or how to read maps. Another quality that's equally important to the table to impart to his children. So I think a lot of it has to do with, this past generation has been raised by single mothers, and they just don't have both sides of the coin.
Very true. For the larger part of my childhood, up until I was about 10, my dad and my mother, they had divorced. So my dad wasn't necessarily in the picture until my mom got remarried. Me and the stepfather weren't that close, but it was nice having some masculine energy around. Kind of, I still suck at with fixing things and putting things together, but he taught me the bases with tools and all that other, crap.
Yeah.
But would you say that the single mother home, and this isn't to knock single mothers, but would you say that that is the breeding ground for the nice guy?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. In fact, you'll hear many, many single mothers tell their sons, oh, be a nice guy, oh, be a
Oh God,
sensitive
yeah.
guy. And, I'm all for being a gentleman and having manners. That's a whole nother realm. I mean, I want you to be a gentleman and have manners. I want you to be civil. But that's a whole different definition than nice guy. Nice guy basically can't close the deal. That's the definition of my nice guy. Is they want in, but they don't know how to get in. So they figure, okay, well, if I paint your living room, that's a nice gesture, and you're going to want to have sex with me. Or if I'm going to go tire shopping with you, that's a nice guy gesture. So you'll think so highly that I spent the last 2 hours going tire shopping with you that you're going to have sex with me. They don't know how to close the deal, so they do all these nice things on the hope that she will follow through and reward him in this way. It doesn't work that way.
Very true. And
Because
yes,
because from the
sorry.
woman's point of view, it's okay, so you went tire shopping. That she doesn't read more into it. That's the end of the story for her.
And you actually see this whole nice guy thing kind of play out in other areas of his life, especially with the culture of everyone gets a participation trophy and
Exactly.
all that stuff. And you say the nice guy, he doesn't know how to close, and I think a lot of it has to do with our culture. With the nice guys, that the nice guy mentality is he wants everybody to win. If he wins, he wants the other guy to win as well, and he wants everybody to hold hands, and and that just isn't the way that life is, especially in dating. It's a very competitive thing at any moment, especially with technology. I can talk to a girl today that I meet on the street, and by the time she opens up her phone, she can forget about me because she just had like 40 guys on Tinder that just swiped right on her and are now, saying hello or sending her dick pics or whatever stuff guys do, and she could forget about me in like 2 seconds.
Right. Right. Absolutely. I mean, yeah, the thing with the soccer trophies, it's not a picture of real life, because real life, there are winners, there are losers. So rather than saying, okay, Johnny's team didn't win, why did the other team win? Well, they did this and they did that. Maybe you only practiced once a week, but maybe the other team, they were out there practicing 3 times a week. Or maybe the other team had a better coach, or maybe the other team did more drills, or like whatever the story is. There's got to be some reason why the other team won, rather than giving everybody on Johnny's team a soccer trophy, expecting them to win at real life. It doesn't work that way. It doesn't work in real life, in your career, in your job, and it certainly doesn't work that way with women.
So do you think, especially given the way that our society and culture is set up, for these guys who have kind of been morphed and shaped into this nice guy through their younger ages, and growing up through grade school and high school, do you think that when they get like into their early to late 20s, do you think that they have a chance at changing their ways and kind of not necessarily turning it into assholes, but kind of getting rid of that passive feminine weakness that has kind of been bred in his face and said that this is the way to be?
It's not going to change on its own. It's not going to change because time is involved. I mean, one has to be an active participant in one's life. So the best way to get there is either A, to develop confidence. And if you don't have confidence already, one of the best ways to get confidence is figure out what you like. And let's say you like to play guitar, or let's say you like to play golf, or whatever it is. And then take that that hobby, that passion, that interest, whatever it is you want to call it, and work on it at least 30 to 60 minutes a day. Get really, really good at that attribute. Get to be a great golfer. Get to be a great at the guitar, or whatever it is is your passing fancy, right? And then once you build that confidence automatically spills over to women. You will have that gene. It's yours for life. So that's one way to do it. Another avenue to do it is get around a male mentor. Now, maybe dad wasn't in the picture. Maybe you can go to grandpa. Maybe there's an uncle. Maybe there's a sports coach or a religious figure, or maybe a coworker, or somebody that you look up to and admire that you can learn from. Another way to do it is to get a male mentor. And then thirdly, hang out with guys, because you kind of like learn a little bit here and there from, what worked with this guy, what didn't work with that guy. And, you pick up, street knowledge like that.
And we are you'd mentioned a few things about dating in there, and I do want to transition to that. But first, I'd like to ask you about the current relationship between men and women in society, with the rise of feminism has been around for a long time. Now there's this new group of people. They're very active on the internet, and they're called Mgtow, men going their own way. And first, I want to get your opinion on Mgtow. What you think? Do you think that this will be a harmful thing for the male and female relationship in society in the long run?
No, I mean, I think it's a retaliation. Feminism has gone, made the pendulum swing so far in this direction, whereas Mgtow, they had to do a pushback. So they went completely in the opposite direction Are both of them healthy? I mean, are each of them healthy? No, not really. But maybe by going into opposite extremes, maybe we'll restore balance in some way. So the men today, and I don't blame them, they're just revolting. They either don't want to participate, or there's another group that just wants to be an a-hole. You know, that's not the answer either. But I know a lot of dating coaches are just telling their guys to just be an a-hole because women like it. Just take it. You know, just um, see them once, do your business, and then move on and dump them. You know, and be mean to the girl, and demean the girl and what have you, because that's what girls like. That's not the right answer either. I think a lot of those dating coaches say to be an a-hole because they don't know how to do it for real. In my book, you will find out the real way to get through to women. So there's, you don't have to lie, you don't have to deceive, you don't have to do any of those player moves, and you can get the girl for real. And my techniques, you can use them for either your one night stand or all the way on the other end of the spectrum, which is your forever girl. So the techniques work for, both ends plus everything in between.
And for those of you listening, Linda actually has a show called the Men's Advocate Show. She's been very vocal with things like men's rights and helping guys out with discussion about legal issues that men may face after divorces and all of that kind of good stuff. So I will leave a link to her show, and of course, as well as dating advice. And I will leave a link to her show in the description for those who are listening. And you had brought up your book, and your book is absolutely phenomenal. A lot of people these days who write a book, and I don't want to really knock too many people, but a lot of people, when they write a book and they post on Amazon, it's about 20, 30 pages, and it's a lot of useless information. But you, of course, you interviewed 20,000 men, you know a lot about the topic, and you really break things down, and you go into pretty much, I think, every area of dating and relationships that are relevant in today's world. So let's start off on your books and some of the basics that you have in your book. In your book, you have the Chalkboard Formula. Can you talk a little bit about that and how that can help men with their dating life?
Absolutely. By the way, my book is available on Amazon. It's either in a paperback version or an ebook version. I know a lot of my guys write me letters back and they say, oh my God, I have to go back and get the paperback version because there's just too much information here. And a lot of the guys are taking a yellow highlighter and reading the book 4 and 5 times. A lot of people have written me to say, oh my gosh, this is my new Bible. Because
I'll leave a link in the description for them.
Thank you. They say that, anything and everything that comes up with regard to women, it's in that book. And in fact, a lot of men are using some of the techniques to use it in business. Maybe they have a female coworker, or maybe they have a female relative that they don't get along with that well. You can use some of these techniques to apply it to non-dating situations as well. So it all works. Yeah, so anyway, to fast forward to the Chalkboard Formula, basically what I found out from my academic research is that there are 4 characteristics that if the guy, it's my premise that if the guy does these 4 characteristics, he can win over any woman, anywhere, anytime. And it's regardless of race, color, creed, religion, geography. It doesn't matter what language she speaks or where she lives. Like I say, most of this stuff is biology driven, and that's why it works. People would write to me and they're like, well, how do you know it applies to anyone? Aren't women so complicated? Aren't women so different? But when you break it down to the biology level, I'm giving you the magic key that unlocks that lock. When you have it broken down in such easy terms and terms that are so easily doable, it's like, it's a head slap. It's like, wow, how come this stuff is not common knowledge? It's so easy to do, but it's not common knowledge. And it's not intuitive. It's not something that you would just wake up one day and say, oh yeah, I got to have this trait. So the number one trait that I mentioned a moment ago is confidence. That's absolutely number one. Got to have that, like she needs air. The second trait that you have to have is connect with her. You have to find some kind of common ground to have a discussion about whatever it is. You know, I like golf, you like golf. You know, I like to, play my guitar on the weekends. You like to play your guitar on the weekends. You have to find something in common. Even if you just met her for the first time, it's only been 5 minutes. Before you open your mouth, look around the room and see what you both share in common. It might be that, wow, that customer, over at that far table is really giving the waitress a hard time. That might be your icebreaker. It's something that you have in common. You have a shared interest or a shared experience. Use that to start your conversation. It's really easy to do. Like, and I go into more detail in the book, like how to do the connect with her part, but that's basically the essence of it. Step number 3 is caring. You have to give a rat's tail. If you don't give a rip about her, she's not your girl. Put her back in the stream and let her go find another fish. She's not for you. So you have to be motivated. You have to care. And then lastly, and this is the trait that most players don't have, is you have to have character. That's why a good guy will win at the end of the day, because compared to a player, a good guy compared to a player, the player does have confidence, but it's what I call fake confidence. It's being cocky, it's being arrogant. He knows he's got to throw his swagger around, to get the girl's attention. Does that work? Of course it works. It'll work for a little while. It's short-lived. It might work for a couple of months, 3 months, whatever, but it does work. In the book, I teach you how to get confidence for real. So you feel it in your gut, you have it, and it'll be a lifelong trait that you will carry in any room, in any situation, not just in dating, but you can carry it to your career or other interpersonal relationships. So step number 2 and 3, the connect with her and the caring, the player knows he needs those steps. But again, it's a false premise. He's doing the connect with her and the caring, but he's lying and deceiving with it.
And eventually she'll sense it.
Right. Eventually she will sense it, and that's what brings us to number 4, which is character. You have to walk the walk, talk the talk. You have to do it for real. If it's not for real, she'll eventually, sense that it's not legit, and a good girl's going to let you go, because she's not going to put up with that.
The girl is really secure with herself, yeah.
Yeah, the player, like I say, the player will get steps 1 through 3. It'll last them 2-3 months. So if you're eventually looking to build your own repertoire, build your own character, do these things for real, because you can apply them not only in dating, but in any area of your life.
Very true, and it's also really important, that last part, character, because a lot of guys, and I've done it when I was a bit younger, but a lot of the guys that I know, they're willing to like lie about their job or whatever that they're doing. If they're unemployed, they'll say they work at this place or that place, and it's always just better to be honest, because eventually she's going to find out, right? So
right, or you're going to trip yourself up. It's hard to remember all your lies, right? I mean, unless you're writing it all down in your cell phone somewhere, it's just, you're going to either trip yourself up, or it's going to
too much work to begin with.
Yeah, it's just easier to just be clean and, just do it correctly the first time out.
So what about men who are, they're pretty confident, they aren't necessarily shy, but they just have a hard time. I guess you kind of touched on this, there are certain ways to break ice, but they just kind of have a hard time getting over that anxiety of walking over there. And I know a lot of people, they do things like they go out there and they kind of sign up for these like $10,000, dating boot camps, but you say you don't necessarily have to do stuff like that. What are some tips for some guys that are just really, really shy and they need help overcoming that anxiety?
Yeah, the connect with you part is so important, and that's the part that person should focus on. In my book, I was one of those shy people. I was shy until I was probably about 30 years old, and one day I woke up and I thought, this is ridiculous. I don't know how to talk to anybody. I go into a room and I freeze up. I go into a small room, a small group of people, I freeze up. I go in one-on-one, I freeze up. I go into a large group of people, this is ridiculous. I got to get over this. So for me, what I did was I joined a networking group, and we met once a week at 7 a.m. for breakfast, and you had to stand up and just do impromptu a 30-second sales pitch on whatever your product or service was. You can go to a speaking group like Toastmasters, but the problem with it, and that does help, it'll get you over your shyness. The one step that I like better about a networking group is you get feedback. Whereas Toastmasters is just one direction. You're just you're just practicing speaking. Whereas in a networking group, if that person in the audience now bought your product or service, your bonus. It's a two-way connection. Not only have you made an effective message with your product or service, they bought it. So you know that you're being effective. So that's what worked for me. I did that for, I think, about 18 months, 2 years, whatever it was. And that completely cured me of my shyness. So I would say get in some sort of speaking arrangement. And if you can find something that has feedback, all the better. Another way I did it was I wrote a daily blog in the process of writing my book. And that was also two ways, because I wrote the blog, but then I had hundreds of people commenting on it. So I got the feedback, this sucks, this doesn't suck. I like this part of the blog. I didn't like that part of the blog. You got the interaction. So anything that you can do that is a two-way interaction will definitely break you out of the shyness thing. And you have to realize people who are shy are selfish, because you're in your own little bubble. You're only thinking about yourself. You're only thinking about your own feelings, and you're in a bubble. So you can't be in a bubble and be social. In other words, in order to be effective with being social, you kind of have to place yourself in the other person's shoes, or you have to be in a position to like if you're in sales, you have to be in a position where I give you something and you give me something back. In other words, I give you a product or service of value, and in turn, you're going to buy my product or service. So it's a two-way communication thing. So all of those techniques will break the person from their shyness.
It's actually really funny. I actually never looked at it like that, as a shy person is actually being selfish. I remember, and sometimes I am shy, or sometimes I'm just not that much of a super social person, unless I absolutely need to be, and then I figure my way out to kind of turn it on. But it's very funny, because when I was extremely painfully shy, I had this idea that when I entered a room, everybody was just staring at me, or everybody was just thinking about me, or everyone's judging me, or everyone's doing that. I had this sense, without knowing it, I had this sense I was the center of the world, or the center of the universe, or the center of the room, and everybody was just fixated on what Camden is doing, and what Camden is saying, what Camden is wearing. And I was now that you really since you brought that up, I just thought that I had to point that out. But
because when you're shy, you're just into your own head and your own thoughts. You're not even really looking and paying attention to what the other person is doing. I mean, maybe your assumption is correct, but you know what? Maybe it's not. Maybe they're not.
And it usually isn't.
Maybe they're not thinking that at all. But you think they are. So that's why I call it a selfish behavior.
Very true. I wanted to go into the next part. I had a friend who used to always complain about this specific thing, and he was a very good-looking guy. He's a very confident guy, almost too confident, very cocky. But he used to always complain about this. He used to always say to me, for whatever reason, and I quote, "Ugly chicks are the only ones that seem into me." And in your book, you actually talk about that, and I just want to know, what is your take on that for the people who don't, why is this happening to him?
It's kind of like the same ritual as the soccer trophy kids. I think the Lena Dunhams of the world, large and in charge, and I can be, you should like me for my sparkling personality. You shouldn't be looking at what I look like. And so I think a lot of the brainwashing has come to women that back in my day, you were shamed if you didn't keep yourself up and you weren't physically fit and at least combed your hair and you kind of looked nice, smelled nice, or whatever. You looked and acted like a girl. Okay. Now, it's perfectly okay if she's eating 12 McDonald's and she's drinking 4 Diet Cokes, and you're supposed to like her because of her personality. You're supposed to look beyond smelling and looking nice like a nice girl. So it's just just kind of like the soccer kids with the trophies. They're giving out trophies to everybody. I think the social media today wants to brainwash the guys that the Lena Dunhams of the world are not only okay but endorsed.
Mm-hmm. In a strange way, it's almost as if when it comes to dating, men's confidence has went down and women's has kind of went up, or women. And I see a lot of really good looking guys, and I'm not going to be like, oh, they shouldn't be with or whatever, like if they actually like the girl. But I know a lot of guys who go and flirt with unattractive women that they know that are unattractive, or date unattractive women that they really aren't that attracted to, just to get laid. And I think that too really does contribute a lot to it as well, because if women know that if women know that any guy will sleep with them, pretty much, that's really gonna boost their confidence a lot, make them feel really entitled. So how can men who want to date above average looking women, what do they need to do? Like do they need the fancy watch, the car, the house in the Hamptons, and so on? What can they do to start dating the above average looking women?
Yeah, in my book, I don't ever talk about money or status or any of that kind of stuff because I don't think you need it. It's not the money that women are going after. It's the confidence that that money represents. He didn't get that level of money for no reason. He got that level of money because he's confident and he put in the hard work to get there. So, he might have had 1 step forward, 3 steps back in his career, 1 step forward, 3 steps back. He might have been knocked down 1,000 times, but people don't see all that. They think, oh, well, she's just in it because she wants the money, So if you're only going to attract a gold digger, I guess that might be an okay assumption to have. But a good girl, a good that you eventually want to be with, she really won't be in it for the money. She'll be in it for, your character and your perseverance and the blood, sweat, and tears that it took you to get to that level of money or status or fame or whatever it is. Does that make sense?
Oh, it makes perfect sense.
It's a big difference. For example, they often misquote that quote in the Bible. It's not money is the root of all evil. That's not what it says. It's the love of money is the root of all evil. It's like 2 totally different things.
Completely.
So it's very parallel to what I'm saying with this. It's what the money and the status represents, which all boils down to confidence. So if you're a guy, I think it's a misconception because guys are into looks because that's biologically, that's how they're engineered, because they want somebody that looks good, looks fit to produce their offspring. That's what a guy's genetic makeup is for, right? Mm-hmm. So they think that if the woman is really good looking, that she's going to be, so selective that he's not even going to have a chance. But that is not true, because that's not how women think. That's how men think, but that's not how women think. Women do go after personality, and the number one personality characteristic is your confidence, of course, like we talked about. So what ends up happening is all these super good looking women, they're sitting at home on a Friday night twiddling their thumb because nobody is asking them out.
Because they're afraid. The guys are too afraid.
Yeah, they're all looking at each other thinking, oh, she's got 20 dates. And really the opposite is happening. It's because nobody is approaching these good looking women. They're sitting at home doing nothing on a Friday night, when actually you should start off with the good looking women because your odds are better.
God, that is so, yeah, yeah. It's actually very funny. In my
It's the Lena Dunhams of the world who have this super inflated confidence, you know, and in reality, they're the ones that are not getting the dates because nobody wants them because they don't look good. But it's kind of like all twisted and backwards. So, the advice to a guy is, I would say, start with the good-looking girls.
start with the good looking girls. That's yeah. And now that I really think about it, I remember it was just summer. I saw this really good looking girl, beautiful Italian girl, and I walked up to her and I started talking to her and I asked her out. Like I just stopped her, like, because I had to, and I was like, you're very gorgeous and I want to, go out with you. And she was like in shock. And I was like, hasn't the guy ever asked you out before? And she was, she like I was like, has the guy ever stopped you and asked you out on like the street before? Because it was like her reaction was just like, what the hell? Like, this is like she was flattered, but she was also very taken back by it. She's like, no, this doesn't happen to me. And I was talking to her
See?
later, yeah, and I was talking to her later on, and she pretty much said that all of her ex-boyfriends were people that she had like known within her social circle, never just like some random dude that just took a liking to her just by seeing her and just wanted to go out with her.
Right.
So it's very funny though that you brought it up. So from that point, after the guy gets the date, let's talk a little bit about the phone game, texting, calling, etc. First, when a guy calls and he doesn't receive a phone call back, what do you think is going on through the woman's head? Why she wouldn't call him back?
You mean not being called back, say, within 24 hours, or what kind of time
Or
frame are
just
we
like
talking about?
just like in general, like I know a lot of guys who complain about getting the phone number, and
Hmm.
sometimes they leave a message, or sometimes they do end up speaking with the girl for a short period of time. She agrees to kind of to kind of keep talking to him and possibly go out with him, and then she never ends up calling him back, like, ever.
Oh, not calling back ever. Well, she could be tied up with some other guy. She could be, maybe she just broke up and she's just not emotionally ready to get back into something with a new person yet. It could be grandma just died, or it could be a whole host of reasons. Um, Not the least of which, you just didn't do it for her.
Hmm. Do you think that, especially in today's dates with the smartphone, with texting and stuff like that, do you think that um, a phone call would be a way to kind of stand out instead of texting somebody?
Oh, absolutely. I know a lot of guys hide behind, the phone call or social media. I'm sorry, they hide behind texting or social media, but I think it's very impersonal. I mean, it's good to do it for a little while, maybe like 2 weeks or whatever, just to get to know the person a little bit. But yes, you will be a standout if you make a phone call, because
Hmm.
there's more risk involved, I guess, for a guy doing a phone call,
Oh,
and
definitely.
set yourself apart. I mean, start with the other stuff first, and get a comfort level, get a dialogue going. But once you've done some of the preliminary stuff, just go for it. Go for the phone call.
Hmm. And what about, like, let's talk about when a woman flakes. She decides, like last minute, she decides to call the guy or text him and say she's not going to show up, or just not show up at all. From your experience when you talk to some of your girlfriends, and from your experience, if you've ever done this, what do you think that the man has done wrong in order for that to happen, or do you think it's just something, in many cases, he just didn't do anything wrong at all?
Oh, he did. He usually did something wrong. Usually, it's not enough confidence or not enough connect with her. So if it were me and I canceled at the last minute, I probably, if I still wanted to see you, I'd probably be setting the new date right then and there, or at least within the next 24 hours, I would set the new date. Let's say, I don't know, my boss called me away or whatever, and I have to work late or whatever it is. I can't meet that meeting with you at 5 o'clock for some reason.
Hmm.
So when I call you to cancel, I would probably set up the new date right away, or at least within 24 hours. If I'm not doing that, then you haven't done it for me. If I cancel the date and
Hmm.
then don't rebook and like 3 days goes by, that's not a good look. That's not a good sign.
Are there anything that you think that a man can do to kind of change it, to kind of win that girl back?
Yeah, the connect with you is very important. I mean, I would not use lines like, oh, you look gorgeous or you're the best looking girl I've ever seen. I would not go there because she's already getting thousands of those types of compliments. Not that you can't say it ever. I mean, of course, you're going to say it some of the time. But if you find mutual interest to talk about, it'll hold her attention because in psychology, we call this mirroring. It's like, if they're putting out a certain demeanor, you're matching that demeanor. If she's crossing her leg to the left, then you cross your leg to the left. If she's putting her arm over here on the table, you put your arm, I mean, don't tell her what you're doing, of course. You put
Of
your
course.
arm over here on the table. So you can do mirroring with language too. So, if you like to go to this particular coffee shop because on Tuesday nights they have live music. Oh, really? I like to go to hear live music and I go to that same coffee shop, and that gives you like a common interest and it gives you the basis of bonding. So she feels accepted, she feels acknowledged, she feels listened to. These are all qualities that women really, really like. And that's what will draw them in because you guys have common interests.
Excellent. And in your book, you also have this one area that was really interesting. You call it the springboard technique. What exactly is that for those who may not have read your book?
Springboard technique. What was that about? It's been so long ago since I've written that one. Do you recall a little
That's
bit
right.
more about it, or?
No, I actually the reason why I asked is because I actually forgot what it was about, but it sounded interesting. But
Yeah,
I
I'll
can
get back to it.
yeah.
Let me defer that question for
Okay.
a little bit and I'll come back to it.
Okay. And you also talk about, and I wasn't sure if you meant this literally, but to match the man must match his shoes with their purse. Do you mean that literally? What exactly did you mean by that?
Okay, so okay, I remember now. I'm looking at that part with the springboard technique. Like I was saying earlier, find a hobby or passion or an interest in another area, and you don't even have to practice with women. That natural confidence building that you're doing in this other area, let's say it's guitar or golf or whatever it is, it naturally trickles down to how you interact with women.
Perfect, makes sense. So it goes back to the mirroring and all that. Okay, okay.
Right.
There are just some certain parts that when I was looking through the table of contents and when I was coming up with my questions, there are some parts that that I had read but I couldn't really remember because your book is like you go in a lot of details in many different areas from breakups to everything. And you have this one part in your book, and this is going to piss a lot of guys off who have been cheated on. But you say that when a man is cheated on, it's the man's fault. Why is that exactly?
Well, it's a given that a guy is going to get off. It's a given that he's had sex. So your needs are going one way or the other. I mean, 99% of the time, good success rate aren't so high for women. So you have to realize that her body works at a much slower timetable than yours. I mean, a guy can get off in 20 seconds, 30 seconds, or maybe at the most 2 minutes, where her body is slower. It might take 20 minutes to get her there. So I think a lot of times, when she's cheating, it's that because
Hold on, sorry, Linda. You actually cut off there. You're actually cutting off there just for a second. So I heard that um, she's usually cheating
because it's already a given that the guy is going to have sex and is going to get off. I mean, 99%
Mhm.
of the time when a guy has sex, he gets off. There's no mystery to it. It's just going to happen,
Definitely.
right? Well, unfortunately, a man's timetable, like a guy might get off in 20 seconds, 30 seconds. But unfortunately, a
Very true.
woman's timetable is pretty slow. It might be 20 minutes to get, her engine warmed up where all the parts are moving correctly and, she's into it and she's, feeling good and feeling sexy and, then the moment might, come along 20 minutes from now. So just acknowledge that the two bodies work completely differently. So
So
a
to really
lot of
take
times
time.
women will cheat because she's pissed at the guy. So, and one area that women get pissed about is that she's not being gratified sexually. I
Hmm.
mean, not only with the orgasm, but like anything physical that you do. In other words, you might be a sloppy kisser, you might be a wet kisser. She doesn't like that. Or you might be drooling in her ear and she doesn't like that. Or maybe she really likes to have the back of her neck, she likes to have that caressed and touched. And guess what? You're omitting that. You're not doing that. So, all these little pieces add up to, she's not getting a successful moment. She's not getting, a full, robust moment like you are.
And it's actually very true. I remember you saying in your book that, and the last time we spoke, so that sex pretty much begins when you start talking to her, which is very very true because women, they're not all 100% physical, like you said. It has a lot to do with confidence and the man that can kind of turn a woman on and kind of start to get that ball rolling. But is there any other things that you feel that men are doing wrong besides the whole sexual thing? Um, and is it always a man's fault, or can the woman just kind of just be a bitch at some point?
I guess she can be a bitch, but I guess she's being a bitch because you haven't gotten the job done with the four C's. By the way, that's what I call the four tenets of winning the girl over: the confidence, connect with her, caring, and character. So yeah, I think it's not always the guy's fault, but when sexually speaking, there are elements that you can add or subtract that will you know, make her experience more satisfying. And you just have to she just has to reveal, what those are, and you have to discuss it and find out what those are. So, you know, I think, guys, biologically speaking, they go after how a woman looks,
Mm-hmm.
whereas women, sexually speaking, they get turned on by what they hear. And by the way, texting and social media is a form of hearing because when she's reading that written word, she's saying it aloud in her head. So it's still in her mind, it's still an auditory function. In other words, it's not a function where she's visually looking with her eyes to see something. So
Very very true.
you can play to that. So you can make that phone call and you guys have this low, deep, sexy voice, and that turns her on. Or you can, let's say you're meeting her at 7 o'clock tonight. Well, during the daytime, maybe send two, three sexting messages, short, quick, like a few words or one liners or whatever. Um, you know, Here's what I'm planning on doing, to you tonight, or something like this. This is somebody that you know a little bit better, not a first date. But, send a couple of text messages to get that engine moving because, like I say, her body works a lot slower than yours. So you can use some of these little tips to kind of, by the time you get there at 7 o'clock, she's already like thinking in that manner.
Do you think men should kind of space out their text messages a bit, like not reply right away, or do you think that kind of doesn't matter?
It depends on the context. It depends on if she's already a steady girlfriend. It depends on so many different things. But spacing it out a little bit sometimes helps. What I would do is I write this in my book. It's called intermittent reinforcement. Like, mix it up. Like, one day you might be bam, 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 you might be responding to her texts like within milliseconds.
Mm-hmm.
But maybe 3 days later, hey, maybe it takes you 2 hours to respond. So I would just change it up, like keep her guessing.
Perfect. Okay, because I know a lot of guys. They and we always in like this dating community and stuff like that. A lot of people kind of go back and forth with that. Some people say, "Oh, just text when you feel like it. It doesn't matter." Some people say, it's rude to not reply right away. And then on the flip side, I have guys that freak out because a girl hasn't texted them, 10 minutes on Facebook or whatever, and they just like freak out and decide that, oh my God, it's because I'm a loser and she doesn't want to date me. And then like 15 minutes after that, she ends up texting them, and the freak out was for nothing. So I just thought that
Yeah.
it was, she's just in the shower or something. And I also wanted to bring up one thing too, because you brought up social media, and it's actually very funny that you actually said that. I've actually attracted women that have actually just went through some of the things that I said on social media and decided to reach out to me and stuff like that. And we'd end up talking for a bit. So I found that very interesting, how you connected that in her mind, because I've actually never thought of it that way. That in her mind, when she reads it, she's it's she's thinking it, so it's like words to her like out loud, and I just never thought of that. So I just wanted to touch on that. I'm kind of jumping all over the place here, but I wanted to go into the closing questions. And the closing questions, there's going to be 3 of them. There are a little bit more personal questions I like to ask my guests, just so the audience can kind of get to see a deeper side of them. But before I go into those, this is a very important question, and a lot of people, men and women, have a tough time with this part when it happens in a relationship. But what advice do you have for people? Well, men. We'll stick with men. What advice do you have for men who are really feeling the pain of a tough breakup, especially if they were with the person for many years or even married?
Yeah, I do have a chapter devoted to that. It's called DT's Detox. And the bottom line of that, I mean, let's say you were just really punked out by this woman, or maybe you were just so emotionally wrapped up, in other ways with this woman, and you break up. Either it's a breakup or a divorce or what have you. You have to go through, an emotional detox, so to speak. And the bottom line of it is avoidance for 6 months. So what that means is, you can't play your favorite song that you had. You can't go back over those cute little emails that you saved that, you thought she was so cute or whatever, or she was so funny. You can't drive by her house or her work because that reminds you of her. You just totally have to disconnect. And it's so hard to do. The first 2 weeks, you might as well just slit your wrist because it's really hard in the beginning. But as time goes on, it gets easier and easier. Now the problem comes in like for about a month into it, you just have a relapse. You go back and you smell that sweater that she gave you for Christmas, and it makes you think of her. And if you relapse, you're only human. It's totally fine. So I would say you just have to start the clock all over again. And so start it over again, and you get to that 1 month mark again, and you want to relapse again. But hey, you got to start the 6 month clock all over again. After you do that once or twice, it's too painful. So the duration the detox gets longer and longer until finally you make it to the 6 month mark where there's no contact, no remembrances, no sentimentality. And then at that point, you'll be emotionally over it.
And I'm actually pretty sure there's actual studies and scientific data to actually back that up, that I think it's the 6 month mark really takes to really get over a relationship. Roughly. Do you recommend that men don't date at all during that 6 month period, or do you think a woman or like another woman can kind of make it a little bit easier for them?
A lot of guys, their way of dealing with it is to hop back into the sack again. But the problem with that is I see it as a replacement, that you're replacing the feeling for the old person with the new person. And if the new person doesn't have any substance to it, if it's just a sex only situation, you're still back at square one. it's better to acknowledge, why the breakdown occurred. And the best way that I know of to do that is ask what your part in the demise of the end of the relationship was. Like, she might have been a bitch, she might have been horrible, she might have taken the kids, she might have taken you to the cleaners financially, like whatever. I had this one guy who was divorced from his wife for 10 years. He couldn't get over it. And I asked him one question, and that one question made him get over it. And the one question was, okay, she did all these horrible things to you, and she's mean and angry and whatever. And I realize you have a lot of, burden and anger on your shoulders over this. And I asked him, what was your part in the demise of the marriage? And that changed the whole thing for him. Because it's to be in a relationship, it's not a one-way street.
Very
Part
true.
of it is her dance, part of it is your dance. So by looking at, oh yeah, I did do this, I did do this part, and that's what contributed and caused her reaction in this area over here. So once he did that self-actualization thing of, his part might have only been 10%, on him, and 90% wrongdoing on her. It doesn't matter. You still have to acknowledge what was your part in the demise, and that kind of helps you get over things too. And it helps you learn from it, because the takeaway is you can bring that into the next relationship and not do that again, or make that area better in your life to where you don't experience that with the new person, because now you've really learned the lesson.
Something I also want to add to that, just in general, with any area in your life, it's also better to focus on things that you can control, to focus on things that you actually did, because then it kind of empowers you more. So you're not so you're not helpless. To kind of really take responsibility for your part, and it just empowers you more. It makes you realize that you are in control of your life again, and for you to kind of sit back and be, this victim who's on the couch eating ice cream and calling his friends and talking about it every 5 seconds, to the point that your friends are like, when the hell is he going to shut up? There's just there's just a better way just to handle it, if you really kind of take it into your own, hands, and say exactly what you said. This is what I did, and this is what I contributed to it, and it's part of the reason why we're not together. So yeah, I also wanted to bring that up.
Yeah, and the karmic way that the universe works, or this is what I have found to be true, is that if you don't acknowledge what that element was, guess what? The universe is going to continue to give you that lesson again and again and again until it finally stops you in your tracks and you finally learn the lesson. So let's say that you didn't learn it with this woman, you break up, whatever. Guess what? The universe is going to send you the same type of woman, because, hey, you didn't learn it over there, so I guess we got to dish it out to him again. And this might happen 3, 4 more times. So it's a lot of pain. It's a lot of trouble. Do you really want to go there? Just look at it once, get it right, get it done the first time around. If you need specific tips on the steps on how to do the detox, it's all in that chapter. It's one of my favorite chapters, actually, because I personally had to do this myself when I was going through a bad breakup with somebody that I was just completely, punked out over. And I tried so many millions of things, and I couldn't get over him. But, I did the detox for 6 months. Bam, I was done.
Did you feel that when you went through that experience that you were able to find yourself more and kind of learn more about who you are as a person?
Definitely. Definitely. It's a very self-revealing place to be in, but it's a gracious place to be in. I mean, you're being kind to yourself by finally getting to the bottom of it. And it's not a pain that you want to go through again. So you might as well learn it now.
Very true.
Absolutely.
All right, Linda. So we're going to go into those closing questions that I asked you about, or sorry, told you about. And the first question is, who were 2 of your role models you looked up to in your life, and why?
Oh, wow. That's a big question. Well, probably Oprah, because,
Clever.
talk show host, 25 years of success. The impact that she has made on her world is just, you can't even measure it. It just trickles down in so many different areas.
Oh yeah.
And not only was it the subject matters that she talked about, but there was oftentimes, especially in her later years, there was also an underlying element of, how can I touch you personally? How can I better the world? How can I better you as a person? Like, they might have been talking about, who knows what, getting a second career or surviving rape, or like whatever the topic was. But there was always, like the last 5 or 10 years, there was this underlying element, like how can my subject matter improve you as a person, and therefore improve all of us collectively as the world. And I like that element. I try to do that in my teachings as well.
Yeah, very true. When you think about Oprah and you really look at it, she really shaped a lot of our culture with just everything she did. So
Yeah.
very, very phenomenal.
My
Do
other
you have another one?
My other current role model is Bethany Frankel. She started off with, several years ago, I don't know, 6, 7 years ago, whenever it was, she was a Real Housewife of New York, and she was a nobody. She was a caterer, and she was broke, and she was always constantly scrambling to get, to pay her rent, and she was hobnobbing with all her customers, who were all these, highfalutin customers, millionaires, in the best parts of New York, what have you. And then she tried out for Martha Stewart's Apprentice, which was a spin-off of Donald Trump's Apprentice, and she ended up being in the number 2 position out of all the contestants.
Oh wow.
So anyway, the thing that I like about her is that she went from zero, like absolute zero, like not being able to pay her rent, to now she's a multimillionaire. She made most of her money because she came up with a cocktail, and the cocktail was called Skinny Margarita. And it was the very first margarita that only had 100 calories. Normally margaritas are like 500, 600 calories if you make them the standard way. So she knew that women were calorie conscious and they wanted to maintain their figure, and they couldn't, and she gave them a way to enjoy one of their favorite drinks, but still not rack up the calories. And she ended up selling that margarita to Seagram's and made almost $1 billion off of that one sale.
Oh wow.
So the thing I like about her is she, to me, is the guru of branding. So it's not that, she has skinny girl books and skinny girl cocktails and skinny girl recipes. It's not that. She has found a way that all roads lead to her, and the products and services that I offer are a reflection of my lifestyle and who I am as a person. So I kind of like that attitude too. I like that take too, because even though today I might be writing about books and men's rights, and I have a talk show about men's rights and this and that and the other, tomorrow I would like to come out with a line of Linda Gross sheets, because it relates to dating and the bedroom and whatever, and I would like it to feel good and have good quality and fit the bed nicely, and so I like the way that she brands her products and services. So I guess to her, she's a role model in a sense for me.
Those sheets are a great idea, actually, especially if you able to have a Valentine's Day special or something.
Yeah.
And
I like to cook, so it'd be cool to have like Linda Gross cookware. I mean, sky's the limit. I mean, just because I'm talking in 1 or 2 or 3 of these areas now doesn't mean I'm just going to limit myself to just one thing.
Oh, definitely. Everyone should follow their passions. And I was gonna say, if that woman ever writes a book, she should call it The Margarita Millionaire. I think that'd be a great title. Just saying.
That is a good title.
All right. So next question: what would you do if you only had one day left to live?
Oh my gosh. Whew, I would probably spend it with my family and travel. I would, you know, get on a jet plane somewhere or get somebody someplace really quickly because I'm a very visual person. So I like, you know, nice surroundings and uh, visually pleasing things to the eye to look at, whether
Do,
it's a waterfall or an ocean or an island or like whatever it is. It could be a ski resort. I just visually like to be stimulated.
do you have one place in mind that you'd like to go?
Oh, too many to name. You know, Alaska was, I went to Alaska a few years ago and that was just completely amazing. It's like to see these gigantic glaciers. They're like a mile wide and, you know, several miles deep. And this big giant piece of ice comes crashing into the ocean and it just makes the most amazing, it's like a dynamite explosion when this big piece of ice crashes into the ocean. So that's always a fun place. I'd like to see the European version, you know, like the Netherlands and the fjords and stuff like that. I'm sure that would be fun too. It's probably similar. And then plus they have the midnight sun there, where like in the summertime, you know, it stays bright for um, I don't know, like 20 hours. But in the wintertime, the bad thing is it stays bright for only like 4 hours a day.
Oh
So
wow, I didn't know that. Never heard of that.
yeah, yeah, so many places I'd love to visit. It's, you know, I'd like to do the south of France. I'd like to do Africa one day. You know, they say
I'd
the
like to go.
safaris are like so amazing to see the safaris. I'd love to see the Great Wall of China. I'd like to see the hustle bustle of Hong Kong. I mean, the people that are afraid of, I talked a little bit about this on my show today, the people that are afraid to travel, it's just, I don't
Oh, they're
know.
missing out. They're crazy.
They're really missing out. I mean, it's like, you know, you get to see a different culture and different languages and what kind of food they eat and different customs and different traditions and it just opens your horizons and makes you a bigger person just by having the experience of, hey, it's just not all about you and your little, you know, piece of dirt. You know, there other
Hmm.
people handle themselves completely different than the way you handle yourself, and it might be for good and it might be for worse. But it's good to see the differences because even people that handle themselves worse, at least you come back and you appreciate what you have.
Very
So
true.
it's all good. It's all, you know, big eye opening experience. It's all a learning experience.
Very, very true. Yeah, I'm looking forward to traveling more myself. So far, I've only really been to the Caribbean, other than Canada and the U.S. So I'm looking forward to traveling some more. Last question, and this is a big one. How do you
Yeah.
want to be remembered after you die?
That she helped people.
Awesome.
I think that's my core thing. I'm a helper. I'm a problem solver. Um, I like to negotiate. I like to take a bad experience and turn it into a positive experience. Like, what can we learn from this? How can we apply it to our future endeavors and be successful? So I'd say my headstone would be something like, you know, she helped people or she helped change the
Love it.
world.
That's always this question always gets the most humblest answers. When I first originally put it out there, I was expecting people to say, "I want monuments of me and folklore about my accomplishments." that that is what I was expecting when I first started asking that question. But it's always been the opposite, like the most humble thing. So
That's cool.
But yeah, well, Linda, it's been awesome having you on the show again. We'll definitely have you back on again in the near future. Everyone who wants to buy her book, I will leave a link to the description below, as well a link to her Men's Advocate show, and also a link to her website if you guys kind of want to reach out to her and ask her for some advice and learn more about what she does. And Linda, is there anything else you'd like to say before we close out?
No, I think that's good. I have one-on-one coaching also on my website. If they go to themensadvocate.com/coaching, some of these problems that we talked about, maybe above and beyond the book, you need a little bit more help than what the book is offering you. and I can reach out to you. I have a lot of customers who have had lifelong problems, and usually I can solve most of their issues within 4 sessions or less. So, I've had people that have gone to a therapist for 5 years, 8 years, 10 years, and they still haven't gotten their problems handled. And, we get it done in 4 sessions or less. So definitely worth checking into.
Yeah, guys, Linda is. The reason why she's on the show is actually I know a lot of people, a lot of men on my social media and in the social media circle that I have met through the whole dating world and the whole self-improvement and self-help world. A lot of them have really told me that Linda's a really great person at what she does. And I originally heard her on Alan Roger Curry's show. And for those of you who are familiar with this part of the internet self-improvement world, you know that Alan Roger Curry has been around for a really long time. And that's how I originally found out about her. And I learned more about her, and I spoke to more men who have worked with her. And it's been positive every single time. So I just thought I'd point that out there. Linda, thank you so much for coming on the show. It's been a real pleasure.
Thank you so much. It's been an awesome experience. I always love coming on your show, and happy to do it again anytime you need me.
We most definitely will. You have a great night.
Thank you so much. Take care. Bye-bye now.
Take care. Bye. All right, guys. Well, tonight I usually do the quote of the night, and unfortunately, I did not find a quote tonight that I felt would really match the context of the show as far as dating for men. A lot of them were kind of more geared towards women, unfortunately. And I just thought that it would be best because even the quotes for men were kind of sounded like they were geared more towards women. And I just thought it wasn't worth putting them on my show, especially if it kind of went against some of the things Linda talked about and really believe when it comes to helping men with dating. So once again, I want to thank you guys all for listening. It's been a real pleasure. And join us this Saturday, where I will be speaking with the bad boy of the dating game, Mr. Lucario. And many of you who follow me on Facebook do know who that is. So please make sure you subscribe and, come back here next Saturday at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Thank you all for listening and have a great night.